Hi, welcome to Relationship Alchemy. I'm Maria Elizabeth Molly, and today I'm speaking with Sophia and Heleana Blackwell about wife material. Sophia is a performance poet, radio and podcast host for Resonance FM, the Polari podcast, and Virgin Radio Pride. Her most recent collection with Burning Eye Books, The Other Woman, was longlisted for the Polari Prize. Heleana Blackwell is a stand-up comedian and Max Turner Prize semifinalist who has performed at a range of top London nights, such as LOL Word at Battersea Arts Centre, Get Up at 21 Soho and 2 North Down, as well as at Brighton and Camden Fringes in 2022. I have known Sophia for a bit through the poetry community, but independently discovered Heleana through Instagram. And I just thought it would be so fun to interview them together because when I first knew of them, I didn't realize they were married. And then I realized they were married and they created this amazing show called Wife Material. So I just wanted to invite them on here and talk about the show and talk about what it's like to be creatives who are also collaborating but have your independent projects. So I think we're going to have an awesome communication and conversation today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I do.
So first of all, let's talk about wife material, because I think it's just super fun when folks create art out of life. So can you say a bit about the show, what it's about, what the genesis, all of that fun stuff?
Basically, it started out as just a 15-minute cabaret, more drag style show on the stage at the Royal Vauxhall Tavern, which is a legendary gay venue in London. And we were supporting our friend Karen McLeod, who has an alter ego called Barbara Brownskirt. And it was basically very, very music heavy because, as you say, I do radio and podcasts. I'd mashed up a track that we were effectively lip syncing to, but because it was a drag venue, the audience really got that. Separately to this, and this then leads into how we developed the show, is that in 2019, Heleana and I started working with a woman called Maria Shahata, who's an American comedian and is also a dramaturg and director. And we worked separately with her to begin with. And then she came on board to work with us on the show. And we initially were kind of going like, would you like to be our director? And she was like, I'm not really, but make sure it's decent, I think, before I put my name on it. But thankfully, her name is now on the posters and she's done wonders with it. You know, she always makes sure that, you know, we go to some places that are a bit deeper with it. And also for me, doing stand-up was a bit of a new thing. I've emceed events for many years, but, you know, poetry audiences are often that bit more forgiving, you know, than stand-up. It's a whole other thing. And then later started doing stand-up. When was it? Yeah, 2019 as well. So yeah, I found that I remember when, you know, there was one point where Sophia was doing sets, you know, and gigs, stand-up gigs, and I was doing them too. And sometimes we'd be on the same bit. Get us mixed up. So, now the other is not the one. There's two black ones. So yeah, and after we realised that, you know, there initially was a weird coincidence, even when that was included. So I didn't always put two and two together. Yeah, and we're saying about to put two. Surely not. Exactly. So then after that, you know, we got people who would say, oh, you know, so would you ever do a show together? And at first I was like, no way. I was worried about the whole, like, you know, urge to merge thing. I thought that, you know, what if it sort of ruined the chemistry or whatever? Well, yeah, it's not. So yeah, I was really like, I'm planning it. And then one day we were at a friend's comedy night, and we just so happened that we both had quite long sort of bits in kind of relatively short succession at this night. And during that time, I think that shortly after that, I suddenly thought, what are we complaining about? We should just do it. Yeah. Let's do it.
I love it. And I love that there was that initial resistance of like, oh no, let's not merge everything, you know, because that is such a relatable thing. Like you're each creative, you're each in your own worlds. There's a kind of safety in that, but then to come together and create something together, while it can be magical, like you said, it can create a whole host of other problems. So that you kind of work through it, a thing to get to it. Can you say a bit about, well, what's the show about? Give us a sense of what you talk about it in Wife Material.
No, so it's about
exploring marriage as two women and also without a blueprint. Because, if you're straight, there are certain sort of customs and things that you're used to doing. And for me, I always kind of thought of it as a menu of options. So you can go, be for the wedding. Well, I just go, let's have that. Let's have that. Oh, God, then I'll do it. Oh,
That's how I felt about the Carter thing. I was like, no, we're having none of that.
Oh, yes, they didn't have those. No, we didn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of like, so there's this whole kind of thing about, how do you explore the meaning of your relationship, and for that matter, the history of gay marriage as well, in terms of what it took for us to get there, and what happened afterwards. I think that often marriage is often presented as a brilliant endpoint, and you find when it goes off into a sunset, and it's like stuff happens afterwards.
Imagine.
For me, I very believe that it's more of a beginning, it's more of a foundation. So, yeah, and that's what so it's all about too.
Well, I'm so glad you brought that in too, because that is the perennial issue I see among a lot of people getting married, is they realize, or they think that it's an end point. They think like, oh, we've gotten here to the altar, we're good. And I'm like, no, this is where the work begins, because now you're committed. And in a way, it's like, oh, there's space for stuff to come up that hasn't been able to come up before because the commitment has been made, right? And that doesn't feel exclusive to heterosexual relationships. It feels that part feels universal. Like, would you say that's true for you as well?
Yeah, and I'd say so too. And for anything, for me, and I say this as someone who's probably a bit of a control freak, but I find those commitments and kind of routines quite liberating. It's the freedom to say no to a lot of stuff that I was hoping, but I really wanted to say no to a single person anyway, hanging out with places, people with a line, or doing random stuff we didn't want to do.
It's true. Yeah, for sure. I love that. Yes. Permission to say no. Yeah, kind of, you mean because I'm married, I can't do this kind of thing?
It's like I'm free not to.
Yes. Yeah, it's true. Those containers. I love that. I don't think you have to be a control freak to feel this way. I think there is, when you have any kind of clearly defined container, and there's the possibility to find freedom within it.
Yes.
Would you say that's true for you? Yeah. Because I think sometimes we have this idea that, I just want to be free, which means, no rules. And it's like, well, that doesn't work for everybody. Whether you're straight or gay, like, I just don't think, whether you're talking relationships or life, like, it just helps to have some kind of containment to bounce off of, I think, and find yourself in. Would you mind?
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think I'm probably just a bit more sort of rule bound than you are. Is that pretty fair to say?
I've always been a bit more of a heady in that respect. But I think it is important psychologically. I know it's important psychologically to have somewhere safe, and it allows you to then branch off and sometimes go or visit some places that are a bit more dangerous. And one of the reasons why I wasn't actually that crazy about being single or being in relationships with people who turned out to be the wrong ones was this sense of being in a constant holding pattern, and the fact that you couldn't really progress into these places because there was no safety to come back to. So you never actually deal with this stuff. It would just always be kind of constantly going on. And it was only really once, a couple of years after our wedding, I think, that, as you say, stuff comes up. It's still coming up.
Oh, thank you for bringing that in, because and holding pattern is really such a great way to describe it. And again, somehow in that commitment, that container, then there is that safety of like, let's actually address these things, that are coming up anyway, rather than just, this isn't really happening, I'm fine, To me, that's the beauty. I mean, that's the beauty of marriage. Sure, there's a lot of pitfalls in marriage, but to me, that's the beauty that you can really have. What else have you noticed has really served you in being married? Is there something else you've noticed that got opened or liberated for you by making that choice? Because not everybody makes that choice.
No, and we were both definitely up for it. Yeah, it's a thing. A lot of people, I say a lot of people, but it was not everybody, but some of the people who are quite close to us did say, why are you doing this? This is a heteronormative thing to do, or I knew I was away from quite an early age, of 12 or so. So I think part of me and part of my family sort of always expected that I'd end up living in a commune of some kind or doing something that was a lot more far out, rather than working in publishing PR and, living in a suburb of North London. But the thing is, I think,
how conventional.
I don't mind it. I mean, it's interesting as you kind of approach midlife and you do think, as you say, it's not just about what marriage is for, but what life is for. And those two things are interrelated but different. But I think I always actually quite wanted to be a married lady. I feel very content in that space. I'd be lying if I said I didn't. Yeah. How about you?
Yeah. I think that, it's interesting what you're saying about, people sort of thinking, saying, no, it's actually not. Not, it doesn't have to be.
No, it doesn't have to be.
And also, I don't care.
Yes.
I got it. The end.
Here's your next show. I like it. Period. The end. No, it's a really good title, or a memoir. Any of the above.
But yeah, I mean, I think that, I'd eaten the red pill before the blue one. I'd done all the sort of like, going to Burning Man, sort of like, dancing naked in a hot desert, doing all sorts of crazy stuff, bizarre, spiritual rituals, with kind of like dodgy individual, all that sort of nonsense.
As one does. Same.
Sick, and so it wasn't as if I made sort of decision, moved towards life in an uninformed sort of naive kind of way. I checked whether other things were really cool. And then all right, but they were not really my speed. So yeah, I never had that sense. I also never had that sense of, I never midlife crisis spoofed myself in that way, because not at all. It's just like, yeah, well. But I think that also, just the point that you made about having that sacred container, that things could actually come up. I think that previously I was often I was moving all the time, and to be fair, often you can do several.
Yeah, I mean, I've probably lived in about 20 residences. It's quite standard. The infrastructure in the UK is not great, but I think it is good. But by the time you get to your mid-30s, you are kind of ready to put down roots.
Yeah. It was wanting to belong, a person to belong to, belong to you, to be part of the community, all those sorts of things. It really resonated with me.
Oh, yeah. Love that. And it's funny, as a heterosexual person, I think about and talk about queering my marriage all the time. Like, what is it to queer your marriage, even if you're straight? And for me, it is partly, like you were saying, ticking off the things about a wedding that you want to make more individual. Like, we don't necessarily have to do all these things. We can make it our own. I think the marriage structure, no matter what your sexual preference is, the marriage structure needs to be queered. It needs to be made our own. It needs to be liberated from its history as a form of ownership of the female, because that's just not the society we live in now, at least those of us in the developed West, right? So I'm curious if you'd like to unravel more of what it means to you in particular to be married, and what aspects of marriage you chose to highlight, what maybe you chose to leave aside, aside from the garter, which is so dumb. But no offense to anybody who really likes the garter ceremony. It's gross. I just think it's gross. But that.
What do we keep and what do we leave behind? I was quite lucky in that I did have a blueprint of sorts, not necessarily for gay marriage, but my parents are still happily married. And on that side, my grandparents were, Irish and Italian. So, they stayed married and they were in love with each other. But one thing that, I remember my grandmother saying was that she fell in love with her husband again when they were in their 50s. And I always loved that. So I always like that as a possibility, like, your second life, maybe with the same person. That's the thing I'm crazy of exploring in fiction, because that's something maybe you're not the person you are when you got married. I think we are, to be honest.
Yeah, that's a bit of time.
People do change, on a cellular and emotional level. We have to make space for that. So I've kept that. I've kept the idea of change. I've kept listening, understanding, and respecting from my own parents' marriage. And there are some things that I haven't taken with me, such as a conventional approach to religion. So that's the picture. We don't get to church, although I did drag Heleana a couple of times for our wedding because it felt like the right thing to do. But it's not something we do a huge amount of. Whereas when we met, I've been performing for 15 or so years, probably a lot less than that. Heleana was very much more into kind of like physical and health food and not anything. And so we've taken bits of that from life and bits of the arty stuff from mine and combined them.
Yes.
What would you say that you've kept or?
So the things that, I sort of kept is, I think that my mother had always kind of had this sense of determination. And that's definitely something that I think that I've kept, and it's something that shows up. That's in the show. My mother is I tell a lot of my jokes by my mum. And also, but because my upbringing was very different to Sophia's, it was a believe, and therefore, I would confidently say I left about 99% of it behind. Wow. Yeah, it was just like, it was more of a guidance on what not to do in terms of, or what not to look for in terms of connection. So not to say that it's less about direct rebellion, but it's definitely about sort of going right, I need to sort of find my own independence, my own determination, and kind of create the life that we want together. But without, any influence from my side of things.
From your side. Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say is that there was a bit of a blueprint somewhat from Sophia's side, not much of a blueprint, or more the blueprint of what not to do from your side. And then taking those two together, you can really craft your own scenario that works. Is that kind of how that goes?
Yeah. Weirdly, I also do some storytelling, like comedy storytelling, and I did one for a group called True Story, and it was called How Burning Man Taught Me How to Love. And
I love that title.
Yes, and it was basically the opening line is all about how most people get sort of taught by, they're kind of like their parents or authority figures or whatever. I was taught by 50,000 naked strangers in the Nevada desert, saying, yes, I think that that is probably, where I get some more my sort of emotional blueprint from. 5,000 miles away.
Yeah. Hey, whatever it takes, man. Like, whatever works. Not to go too much into my own story, but a lot of really my blueprint came out of the 2 years that I was really deeply embedded in a community and living essentially in a commune with people, and just confronted with how to learn how to talk and be intimate with people and communicate through all different stages of ups and downs and upset and joy and all the things. And I didn't get that from my family, so I feel you there.
Yeah.
It can happen anywhere, and it's great when it happens somewhere.
Yeah. Exactly. So I think that we're currently sort of developing. We're kind of working on the show, and it's kind of, even though we said we're shipping out, it's still in, we're constantly working on it as well.
Yeah, it's still in progress. We want to make it more ostensibly a bigger story by bringing in some of the stories of, older queer couples in particular and bringing them into the picture a bit more.
Yeah.
Because to us, it's the sort of thing about making art out of the ordinary that I think female creators in particular do struggle with. When a guy does it, he wins the Nobel Prize. It's just like mad.
Yeah, totally.
It's the same with us because people are, they look at us and they go, so what? But that's not our experience. Like this is miraculous to us. I'm never going to stop being overawed by the fact that we have this thing. It's like, you're going to be too.
That's so great. And so let's say more about bringing the older queer couples in, because the reason I'm asking is because even for heterosexual couples, there aren't a lot of very, very successful models of long-term committed relationship. I mean, I look to the Obamas, that's basically, like they're a great example because they actually still like and love each other, right? And they enjoy each other's company. And it's so apparent, right? But there aren't a ton of those models. And so then who do we look to? So I love that you're thinking about bringing in older queer couples because I do think we need that. So can you say a bit more about that?
Well, that part of it's in its infancy at the moment, but there are some organisations that I've worked with on and off for years in the UK. There's one called Kenrick, which is a sort of a group for older lesbians in London. There's Age UK, which is one of the UK's biggest charities. So it's not necessarily queer, obviously, it's just for older people. But the one in Camden is 99% gay, so that's where I'm going to start. And there's also a sort of archive, which I discovered in the early days of the pandemic called Opening Doors London, which I discovered because I wanted to speak to lesbians who had been involved in community care during the AIDS crisis in the UK. And so I'm running all these women and I spoke to them and, it was such a beautiful experience hearing their stories. So I wanted to bring them in. And weirdly, in our first or second night in Brighton, we ran into somebody who does something similar called like the Grand Slam, as in like Gran and Poetry Slam. So hopefully we might be able to actually get them involved. And so it's in the form of workshops and audio. But I mean, to us, it's still a big story, whether they're there or not, whether we're delving into the history of our country and marriage in the country or whatever or not. But I think for us, they're kind of implicitly there, and maybe for other people, they're kind of not at the moment. So we're going to start that out a bit more in the iterations and the data around the show, basically, as well as the show itself, because you can only do so much in 50 minutes. So, we've done a musical version, we've done a called drag version, comedy version, and now we're fucking spirit. Exactly. What works and what doesn't about marriage.
Yes, exactly. Because, there's a book that Sophia has got on the house at the moment called Whatever Happens to Queer Happiness, isn't it? And I think that, when often, particularly historically, there's always been this sort of implicit message that, it doesn't work out, and, so I think that what we want to be able to do is kind of, going for that message, actually, go and show that actually there is opportunity there is light and love, there is, joy to be found, there is belonging, so that is one of the things that we want to explore. Because I think that it's interesting the point that you made earlier on about this idea of the queering marriage and the history of it as well, and the associations with, ownership and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, I think that ownership is awful if it's like somebody claiming somebody else. But giving off yourself to somebody, I think is pretty cool.
It's quite beautiful. Yeah.
When I took your surname, I was just like, yes, I want to be, you would have me.
I love that. This is great. Was that a tricky decision? I mean, was there a back and forth about whose surname?
Well, she says that, but it didn't happen until a year after the wedding. So it wasn't exactly tricky, but I remember us having a really weird bus ride through Clerkenwell where we were basically deciding, do we hyphenate? Do we, do I take Helena's name? Then we went back to, our parents' maiden names and that. And then once we got like 2 or 3 generations back, it just got silly. because none of them resonated in the way that our actual surnames did. And Helena liked her surname, and also it, identifies it as coming from a certain place. So I wasn't going to say, well, you that and remove this part of you. I would never presume to do such a thing. So we waited for it to reveal itself that this is what we were going to do. Yeah.
That's so sane. I love that. What's that?
Sometimes the answer isn't immediate.
It's not. I know. Sometimes you have to let it unfold and reveal itself, as you say, because if you try to force it, I feel like sometimes we have conditioning operating that's pushing us in one direction or the other. And sometimes it takes a while, even if we're not consciously grappling with whatever that conditioning is, it takes a while to kind of filter through, well, this is what I'm supposed to do or what I'm supposed to want, to, well, oh, this is what I actually want. That's true for me in real time, in present, right?
Yeah.
That's not always visible at first because we have to kind of sift through the layers of all the shit we've been taught to him,
Yeah.
And so whether or not that was a deliberate, like, oh, I'm navigating conditioning, not necessarily unfolding like that, but it might just be like, oh, this decision isn't clear now. Let's let it sit.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And no, it's powerful. I love it. I'd love to, if you're open, I'd love to shift and talk a bit about what it's like creatively. You're both creatives. You have independent things that you do. Then you have this project you're doing together. Can you walk me through just a little bit what it's like? I mean, do you have separate rooms? Do you work in the same room? Do you, how does it work in your creation process as a team, but also on your own?
Well, I think logistically, we do have two separate sort of office spaces. I remember during lockdown hearing stories of people who were working in the exact same room and just having an argument because trying to have conference call together and this just doesn't work. Whereas, and before we used to live in a different space where, one of us always had to be in a room with a washing machine going off or, a noisy neighbor, whatever. So we're really, really glad to have got that switched out. But then, when it comes to actually say kind of workshopping, so workshop one is the show. I think that some of it happens separately, and some of it happens together, and some of it happens with the director. So, to say, for instance, I'll often be separately writing jokes, and I'll be testing them out at venues, and then sometimes I'll go, oh, actually, that one actually goes well, could go into the show. And then I'll look at some of the stuff and go, oh, I'll kill that bit, that isn't as good. And then sometimes we might have some time together to talk about maybe an idea for a song, because there's a bit of musical comedy in there, or something like that. And a lot of it happens with the director as well. So, when we're actually, especially when we're refining, I think we're refining with things. Yeah. The creation what it happens with us, and then refining it happens with the director.
Sure.
No, so we rehearse together as well. Obviously, so things come out in that, and there are a couple of things that we obviously learn in performance. There's even a couple of ad libs which we need to incorporate that we did in Brighton. Yeah, so it's an ongoing, evolving thing. Yeah,
love that. And for your work, do you work at an office or do you also you're at home?
I work 3 days a week in the office, and Helena in practice actually does about the same. Though she only wants for women. Yeah, it's about the same. That's correct.
Yeah. Oh, it's cool. Do you ever find that it's hard to sort of put it down and go be a couple? Like, is it?
Yeah. I think I worried about that more than it actually happened, and it's interesting because I felt like I could only have done this with Helena. Obviously, had partners who've been creative in one way or another before, but with her kind of energy and her willingness to learn and hunger to learn and to improve, it's just been a really interesting journey. So I haven't really got tired of working with her. So I don't think there's ever any time when I want us to, she calls me the fun czar because I'm the one in the relationship who's always like, no, darling, we're not improving ourselves tonight. It's kind of I'm like, a bit hedonistic. Like, just because you enjoy it doesn't mean it's hedonistic. I mean, we never got a whole bit of this show, it's not. We want to see us arguing. They're not interested in it. They're not interested in a happy ever after. Yeah, or even, mixed ever after. And they're just like, okay, we're never going to agree on this. The latest relentless quest for self-improvement sometimes has to be interrupted.
Yeah. I think that's probably one of the areas that we need to kind of explore a bit more.
Yeah, what kind of like?
Yeah. Because I'm kind of like, I think you're kind of more existential Parisian. I'm kind of like Californian.
No, it's been on a continent. Oh, really was. But round up the Brenda from 6 Feet Under going, well, no, they're thinking, and now she's just like, right, what next? But it's good because she is just like, I'm more, I flow around things and I fit into things and I smooth things over. Whereas Heleana is just like, channeled straight at the task. So between us, we're very unstoppable.
Yeah, that's a great combination. I mean, I can imagine, I can see the upside. I can imagine there might be a downside too. I can definitely see the massive upside to it. It's like you come
try to be quite annoying, especially in that. Because all of my thoughts happen somewhere between 6 a.m. and 9 a.m. And partly, sometimes my voice said, you might not want to say this right now. You might want to, but the inside voice gets totally overruled by the outside voice. And Sophia is often in the mood hearing about my theory on long-term sort of inflation, what to do about, water scarcity,
do we take it? I can imagine at 6 a.m. It's so funny because I'm laughing because Patrick and I are very similar, but we have different, like I'm the morning person. I wake up and I'm like, let's go, and so he takes a lot longer to boot up, but he's the one that tends to be excited more to share things like that. And so it's kind of like, how do you navigate the person that needs to boot up more slowly? And then how do you navigate sort of the endless stream of things that are fascinating to one person, but the other person kind of couldn't care less about, right? So it's like, it's beautiful because that's relationship, right?
And sometimes I see your Patrick posts, I'm just like, oh yeah, I'm not sure which one of us that is, but I'm feeling it.
Right. I know. It's so, it's such a thing. Yeah. So I wonder if you have any final, we're nearing time. I could talk to you forever, but we're nearing time. Do you have any final things you'd like to share about being married, about the show, about anything, about being creatives that you think would be those fun and useful for people to hear?
Yeah, I think that being creators together can be challenging, but it can also open up great opportunities to get to know different sides of people and to open up sides of them as well. And Heleana spurs me on to do different things and try different things. I stand up being one of them. And Heleana has said on quite a few occasions since we started, like, no, I won't do that. And then 2 months later, she'll sort of sidle over. Do it, actually. Just so I get to be told that I'm right. Yeah. It's always a little bit. You're already a little bit. Okay. I should have done that. Yeah, I get that. Yeah, that's good fun. Sophia generally helps me relax, which I'm very, very bad at. And yeah, it takes stock of good things rather than just going, yeah, that was good. Now, where's the next thing? Oh, when's the next thing? When's the next cup? Right? Yeah. And I've learned sort of, I've accepted myself recently that that's how Heleana is, and she's not going to change. But I don't take it as a personal thing that she's always looking for the next cupcake. It doesn't mean she doesn't like me. No, all this cupcake. It's just like, she doesn't. Rex on him.
Yeah, but you highlight such a beautiful thing that I want to really land for people, which is very often there is a person in a relationship who is more sort of forward driven or goal, next hill to climb, next mountain to conquer kind of person. And there is a person that's much more like, oh, let's smell the flowers because today is beautiful, And I think we can, in our relationship, I'm like Heleana and Patrick's more like you, Sophia. And there's a beautiful commingling of that, I think, that brings each person, I light a fire under his ass and he, gets me to appreciate the present so much more. And I think there's, right? There's such a beautiful day more.
Yeah, we've got a cat upstairs called Clea. She's lovely. And I made a bit of a Freudian slip. I said, Clea really helps me visit the present. I have never lived that down since.
I can so relate, though. I think most of us are merely visiting the present. And it's true. Our animal companions actually are beautiful. What's the word? They help to get us there.
Yeah,
because that's what they know.
It's just about, I don't know, a project or whatever. And then suddenly a cat comes up to you and goes,
yeah.
They don't care about, whether you sold enough tickets. All they care about is prawns,
Exactly. And it's like, pay attention to me. Are you loving me right now? Where's the love? Where's that?
Exactly. So that's,
It's been my absolute pleasure to speak with you both. And for the listeners, the link to their website is in the show notes below. It's wifematerial.co.uk. Is that right?
Yep.
And then there's also the link to Heleana's Instagram. So definitely go down in the show notes, follow her, stay on top of what they're doing. If you're ever going to the UK, look them up, see if you can catch their show. And thank you so much for being here today. I just have loved our conversation.
Thank you. This is wonderful.
Awesome. Until next time, folks, remember that a great relationship starts with you.